today. In this lesson, we are going to learn how to tell if a noun, person, place, or thing, is masculine or feminine. In Spanish, every noun has a gender, masculine or feminine. Now, other Romance languages have this too because it's a trait that comes from Latin, and Spanish does as well. That's why it's a Romance language. So let's take a look at what this means. I want to start by having you think about a word in English. So let's think of the word man. That's a male word. And woman is the female equivalent. Now that's an easy example between masculine and feminine because there's something inherently different between men, male, and woman, women, female, right? But in Spanish, all nouns are classified as either masculine or feminine, and it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the masculinity or femininity of the word. So for example, let's look at the word beard. Beard is a word that is obviously most often used for men. And in Spanish, the word beard is barba. Barba, B-A-R-B-A, barba. Barba in Spanish, though, is a feminine word, even though it's most often used to refer to males. It's a feminine word, and we can tell that in Spanish because it ends in A. So feminine nouns in Spanish often end in the letter A. Another example is the word dress, which is used mainly for women, but it's a masculine word in Spanish. The word for dress in Spanish is vestido, V-E-S-T-I-D-O, vestido. And you can tell that it's a masculine word in Spanish by the O at the end. Masculine nouns often end in an O in Spanish. So again, most of the time, nouns that end in O are masculine, and nouns that end in A are feminine in Spanish. But what about the rest of the words in Spanish, the ones that don't end in either O or A? All right, so before I tell you about those words, the typical patterns that you can use to identify those words, I do want to give you this disclaimer. There is no foolproof way to identify whether a noun is masculine or feminine 100% of the time just by looking at the end of the word. So this means that not every single word that you see that ends in O is going to be masculine, and not every single word that you see that ends in A is going to be feminine. Just like the patterns I'm going to show you aren't going to be foolproof 100% of the time. There are exceptions, and the reason, well, there are many reasons. It has to do with the history of the word. It has to do with the changing of the language and adding of new words. So there are exceptions. With that being said, the guidelines that I'm going to give you are going to get you the right answer of guessing whether a word is masculine or feminine, I'd say about 85 to 90% of the time. But before you know it, you'll be able to just feel it, and you'll know by looking at a word. So let's take a look. All right, so if you want to know if a word is masculine, I typically tell students that the masculine words are maloners. Maloners are words that end in M-A, L-O-N-E-R, and S. Maloners. If a word ends in its singular form, if a word ends in M-A, like el problema, problema ends in M-A, it's going to be a masculine word. If the word ends in L, it's going to be a masculine word. Now, we've already seen this one. If a word ends in O, it's probably going to be a masculine word as well. N, like el pan, masculine word. The letter E, like el coche, which is the word for car in Spain. So here, let's see if I can do this backwards. Here we have carro, which is going to be more Latin America, used in Latin America for the word car. And here we have el coche, which is how we say car in Spain. All right, if a word ends in R, like el amor, it's going to be masculine. And also if the word ends in the letter S, like el país, which means country, the country, it's going to be masculine as well. So as I said, the trick to remembering if a word is masculine is going to be maloners. If a word ends in M-A-L-O-N-E-R or S. And again, that's going to get you there about 85 to 90% of the time correct. But remember that, as I said, there are always exceptions due to historical reasons or changes or additions in the language, things like that. So please keep that in mind. Now, if you want to know if a word is feminine, all right, we're going to talk about dionsa. And these are going to be words that end in D, I-O-N, Z, or A. And you'll notice that the I-O-N has an accent on the O. That's very important, and we need to make sure that that always stays there. So let's take a look at D. If a word ends in D, it's probably going to be feminine, like la verdad. La verdad means the truth. It ends in D, so it's a feminine word. I-O-N. Now, when we looked at maloners, we had a word that ended in N, which was el pan. So you're going to notice that here it's I-O-N. Watch out for that. Words that end in I-O-N are going to be feminine. And the letter Z. If a word ends in Z, like la luz, which means the light, la luz is a feminine word. It ends in Z. And casa. La casa is the house. It ends in A, which we discussed. Words that end in A are most often going to be feminine words. So we have maloners, words that end in M-A, or M-A together, sorry, L-O-N-E-R-S. Those are going to be masculine words most of the time. And dionsa, words that end in D, I-O-N, Z, and A are most often going to be feminine words. All right. With that being said, I want to talk to you about the word the. We use L for masculine words, and we use la for feminine words to say the in Spanish. So, for example, as we said before, barba, meaning beard, is a feminine word because it ends in A. So if we want to say the beard, we put la in front of barba to mean the beard. La barba, the beard. And likewise, with the word vestido, which we talked about earlier, and vestido means dress, if we want to say the dress, since vestido is masculine, it's a masculine word, right? We're going to put el in front of vestido to say the dress. So el vestido, the dress. All right. So going back to our patterns of how to tell if a word is masculine or feminine, let's recap, okay? I know that it's a lot of repetition, but I want to make sure that you get it. So, words that end in maloners, M-A-L-O-N-E-R-S, are typically masculine. And words that end in dionsa, D, I-O-N, Z, and A, are typically feminine. However, there is a rule that does trump this idea. If the word is referring to a living thing, okay, choose the form that matches the gender of the living thing. So, for example, let's take a look at the word mujer. Mujer means woman in Spanish. Now, if we were to follow our typical pattern that we just learned, we would look at this word and we'd say, oh, it ends in R, so it's a masculine word. Okay, If we followed the pattern, that would be true. However, we are referring to a living thing. In this case, a woman, a living female. So we are going to use the feminine. This is going to be a feminine word because we are referring to a living thing. So anytime you're referring to a living thing, choose the form that matches the gender of the living thing. So in this case, we're going to say la mujer. La mujer, the woman. And this is one of those exceptions I was telling you about. So there are going to be rules broken on the dionza and maloners. And it could be for reasons like this. Now, there are also some nouns that can be masculine or feminine. And the only way you can tell which it is by the word the used with it. So, let's take a look at the word estudiante, which is you, student. Estudiante is student in Spanish, estudiante. So, the male student, if we wanted to say the male student, we would just put el in front of it. The word estudiante, and there are many other words like this in the Spanish language, where the word itself will stay the same. The only way you'll know if the word is masculine or feminine will be based on the article, in this case el, meaning the, that comes with it. So el estudiante is a student, but it implies that it's a male student. Because we're referring to a living being, we've used the word the to match the gender of the person, in this case, el estudiante. Now, if we had a female student, we just change the el to la, so la estudiante. So that would be the female student. So it's the same word, it's just a different version of the to show us what's happening in real life. All right, now, once we can identify whether or not a word is masculine or feminine, we need to understand that it also has ramifications throughout the entire sentence it appears in, because you have to make other words match the noun. So basically, whatever the noun is in Spanish, the adjectives or describing words have to be as well. Because adjectives describe nouns, they have to be whatever the noun is, and this is really important. So for example, if your noun is singular and feminine, your adjective has to be singular and feminine as well because it's describing that noun. So let's take a look at an example. If you're talking about a dress, and earlier we said that dress is vestido, so the word dress is vestido in Spanish, and you want to describe the color, you would have to modify your adjective. In this case, let's say red. Red in Spanish is rojo. To be masculine and singular, because the word vestido is masculine and singular. So let's take a look at what I mean by this. Because vestido is a masculine word ending in O, and it's singular, so we only have one, anything that describes this noun has to match it in gender and number, meaning it has to be masculine if this is masculine, and it has to be singular if this is singular. So we would end up with el vestido rojo, or the red dress. Now, you're looking at this thinking, oh, the dress red. But remember that adjectives always come after the noun in Spanish. And this is because we want to know what it is we're describing before we start describing it. So in English, we might say the big, bright, red, bouncy, and we have no idea yet what it is that we're describing or talking about. I'm talking about a ball, the big, bright, red, bouncy ball. But in Spanish, it really makes a lot of sense if you think about it. They say, okay, tell me what it is we're going to describe, and then describe it to me. So in this case, instead of saying the red dress like we do in English, in Spanish we say the dress red because we want to know what it is we're talking about before we start describing it. So adjectives always come after the noun in Spanish. And remember, the adjectives have to be whatever the noun is. So if the noun is masculine, then you have to make your adjective masculine as well. Now, let's say you have more than one dress, because who can only have one dress, right? So we've got more than one dress. So we're just going to make the word dress plural in Spanish. So we said that the word dress is vestido, and to make the rule for making words plural in Spanish, if it ends in a vowel, so A, E, I, O, or U, if it ends in a vowel, simply add an S onto the end of any word in Spanish to make it plural, if it ends in a vowel. Now, if a word ends in a consonant, so anything except a vowel, add ES onto the end. And if a word ends in Z, which is a consonant, you're still going to add ES, but you're going to change the Z to a C instead. All right, so let's look at an example of this. Let's look at vestido, which ends in the vowel O. All right, and so we said if a word ends in a vowel, we just add an S to the end to make it plural. So we have vestidos. So now we have dresses. We have more than one dress, vestidos. Remember, we talked about the adjectives. They have to be whatever it is that the noun is. So if we want to change from the singular, the red dress, to plural, red dresses, we need to change the adjective to be plural as well. So we're going to have vestidos rojos. Vestidos rojos. So this rojos has to be plural as well because vestidos is plural. Okay, so that is your beginning lesson on nouns and gender classification in Spanish. The most important thing to remember is that if you mess it up, it won't stop you from being understood, not even a little bit. So get out there and start hablando español. If you have any questions or you need anything cleared up at all, please don't hesitate to message me or contact me. You can email me at jessica.hunter@mcc.edu. Ok, clase, gracias. Hasta pronto.